Be strong. Be strong in your spirit. Be strong in your soul. Be strong in your body. A lot of my friends, we get the age in life where suddenly, people aren't functioning fully. Matter of fact, we have a show of hands in any meeting I've got. How many of you need healing? You'd be surprised, like half the audience's hands go up. I say, oh my gosh. That's how come I decided I'm bringing in the best Christian voices I know in the areas of emotional, mental, physical health, metabolic health, immunity, hormones, longevity, spiritual resilience. I've got a roadmap I'm going to be giving you guys on how to map out how to be physically and mentally at the peak of your game, regardless of how old you are. That's the thing. You don't have to lose an ounce of your focus, your capacity. Your outward man may be getting older, but your inward man renews, and that inward man is the spark of the supernatural that keeps your body going. So I want you to join me in January 15th through 18th, right there in Florida at the Trump Doral. I'm going to have an expert group of speakers. Who do I have here coming here? Jordan Rubin, Dr. Peter McCullough, Dr. Simone Gold, Dr. Neil Goodman, Chauncey Crandall, Doc Darcy will be there, and Tommy and Miriam Evans for healing services every night. We're going to have deliverance, healing, and every strategy I can think of to make your physical and mental state this year to be maximum, level 10 living, baby. So go to lancewallnau.com/wellness and join me for this groundbreaking event. We did this last year, and it was such a raging success. People said, you're going to do it this year? And you'll even see me, if things work out correctly, doing my first cold plunge. I'm going to bring the cold plunger there and go into this Arctic water and come out revitalized. We're going to have some wild times. I want you to go. Remember that. Go to Florida when it's cold up there in the north, January 15th through 18th, 2026. It's going to be at the Trump Doral. Go to lancewallnau.com/wellness. Get your seat. Get it now. I don't want to sell this one out. I just want to have a full house. I'll see you there. Now let's get into today's show. Well, the train's pulling into the station. It's time for the Lance Wallnau Show. And I'm, by the way, I just found out we have these, oh boy. I don't know if you've ever seen these before, the oh boy mugs for the Lance Wallnau Show. You want to be able to get your oh boy mug because we're having some fun. I read this verse the other day, yesterday, to be honest with you. Whatsoever things are true, whatsoever things are pure, whatsoever things are great, think on these things, excellent, etc. All words that describe the superlative realm of a lofty and an inspiring thought. Think on these things. I said to the Lord, how can I do that when I dwell in the cesspool of the news cycle? I mean, all you got to do is go, commune with the troglodytes on X or Twitter, and they'll pull you under with their kind of like squid-like tentacles under the water. But then I'm hacking my way out with commentary, defending myself left and right against the Candace Owen conspiracy theorists, and then getting oxygen and saying, I'm not going back into that area again. But then the next day, I've got to go back. You know why? Someone's got to do it. Someone's got to put the chalk mark around where the body fell for the investigator to see where the crime was committed. My job is to put a chalk mark around the news to show you where the actual facts are and separate them from the CIA and the QAnon conspiracy interpretations and whatever else is out there to confuse and discombobble the reality of the moment. So, for instance, I think there's a way to do it. Yesterday, I was doing the news cycle, and then I said, let's stop right now and pray. And boy, the cloud lifted off. I'm telling the truth about what's going on in the news, but you got the Bible in one hand and the newspaper in the other, and then the discerning of spirits right there in the middle like a plumb line to tell you what reality is. That's my new commitment for the new year, and I'm not waiting for January to have a new year. I'm starting it right now. Bible in one hand, news in the other, boom. And then when it gets heavy, when I feel the heaviness upon me, it's time to pray. Oh, yeah, we're going to have a praying audience. If you're not a praying audience, then listen, the last thing I want to do is meet you out of your earth suit on the other side of eternity and have you staring at me saying, Lance, why didn't you tell me about this? I want to prepare you. Life is brief. It's a vapor, and then boom, you're out of your body. Eternity's there. And I want to make sure you got Jesus as the priority, not just a news item. Beautiful colors here. Look, we got the orange leaves. I was showing this earlier when all the equipment froze. I don't know if it's a demonic attack or if it's just I'm running a low budget, investment here. I need to upgrade, but I was just at this point in the program when everything changed, when everything froze a minute ago. So I'm half wondering if it's the autumn leaves, maybe making the devil mad right now. But look, we have a beautiful set here. I got leaves, I got the Thanksgiving. And by the way, second part of the show, we're going to have the famous Rush Limbaugh Thanksgiving story. And maybe if you've seen it before, Matt Walsh has it on. All my friends are, putting it on right now. But it's great. It's when Rush tells the story that the actual celebration of Thanksgiving was not what you were told in the woke school system. Real brief history here. The Jamestown Company, which was a business enterprise that was coming over here to find trade and business, but the Pilgrims were desperate to get out of the colonies because they were being persecuted, locked up, and shut down because organized religion would not allow the dissenters, they were called. They're basically just a church group that didn't want to be under the compromise of the religious denominations of Europe, and they were persecuted. So they came to the United States as a church relocation project. Did anyone ever teach you that in high school? Did they tell you that the Pilgrims were actually a church relocation project? And that the businessmen said, yeah, okay, you can pay for the journey because we're going over to see if we can get some trade routes going here, baby. Open up some new markets, kind of like the early internet. Only they didn't have an internet, they just had water. So they came over here to see if they can get a new market. And when they arrived, it was kind of interesting. They had these heathen that were on there that basically were a bunch of hooligans who just wanted to go make money and, I don't know, do trade or do something with Indians. And then they had the religious folks. Jamestown Colony, they planted a cross on the beach. They had a fasting and prayer for one day. They went on, dedicated the land from the East Coast to the West Coast, whatever. They had no idea what was on the West Coast. From this land all the way in, for the glory of God, we claim it. That was what Bradford and the Christians did. Meanwhile, the rest of the colony that wasn't Christians just stared at them. You had two different groups in America, kind of like we got right now. We got the mercantile class, the people that want to make a living, the people that just are looking for the opportunity or came over here through the open border, not because they love America, but because they want a new beginning for themselves. And then you got frankly, the Christian class, which is trying to follow God and just wants religious freedom, freedom of conscience, and just wants to maintain the liberty that they got and prosper and flourish in a new world where they're free to worship God according to the dictates of their heart. Well, Limbaugh tells the story, how they almost died. Bradford's wife dies because of famine, because they had a communist, socialist, Mondami plan. And the plan was everybody work together, and then whatever we all do together, like an Israeli kibbutz, we'll eat whatever produce we have. Well, they didn't know how to skin beavers, trap meat or fish. There's some things they should have learned on the way over. So they didn't know how to survive. The Indians, thank God, came along. One of them who spoke English, ironically, because they were taken prisoner and became a slave of the British, but learned to speak English as a result, and then went on, then got their freedom and knew how to talk to Englishmen. And this guy showed them, you guys are stupid. You're killing yourselves. Here's what you do. Here's how you catch a fish. Here's how you skin a beaver. Here's how you survive in a winter. Here's how you plant corn, by the way. So thanks to the Indians for that. As part of the Thanksgiving that, these guys, half of their crowd was dying, but they also realized that their socialist experiment was a mess. Everybody doesn't work the same. The young men didn't want to work for the older men who were indoors and frail and couldn't really, survive the last winter. And they said, why should I go plow all the fields and then give my produce to someone else? But that's the way people are. They haven't changed. Why am I going to work and sweat and do all this, and then the government's going to take it all and redistribute it to people that didn't do anything but moan and groan and complain and give the middle finger to me all day? Why am I working so hard for them? They don't do nothing. Well, you see, that's bad for morale in a country. That's why socialism, one of the reasons socialism doesn't work, it doesn't reward the sacrifice, ingenuity, and risk of the entrepreneurial class. So Bradford, he said, "The heck with this." He said, "I thought maybe that was the biblical Book of Acts thing. They had all things in common." He was trying to start with the Book of Acts, but they didn't have a Holy Ghost upper room experience, and they didn't have the wisdom of God leading them either. So he said, "Actually, everyone's going to get a plot of ground. I tell you what, have at it, people. We'll survive this winter. We got corn. We learned how to fish. We learned how to hunt beaver. We learned how to make some skins. I think we're going to survive this winter. But how well we do depends on how well you do. Everyone has a plot, acre of land or a plot of land. Do what you want with it." Boy, those young guys went out there. They plowed that land. They had bumper crops, so much so that they could then sell it, even to the Indians. Next thing you know, free enterprise. Unleash the pent-up capacity of the American experiment. And suddenly, everyone was thriving. Everyone was thriving. They had abundance. And that was the Thanksgiving where they were sharing back and selling produce, even with the Native American population that was here. And they came together for a great feast of Thanksgiving to God. Thanksgiving to God for their survival and for giving them a land that had the produce capacity and for giving them the wisdom to make it after half of them died with the Mondami socialist experiment. Now, Rush tells the story better than me in less time, but I had to get it out of my system for one reason. I wanted to rehearse it. You know why? Because my son-in-law is here in the studio, and I wanted him to hear the story of Thanksgiving, the actual story. And why? When you hear it from all your woke schools that have you, indoctrinated by Pocahontas and everything else, this will help you get sorted out. Well, I only got 2 minutes and 40 seconds, so let me just transition into, it's an 8-minute video clip, so we're going to play that in its entirety at the end in the next segment, because I want you to hear it. But right now, we got 2 minutes. Hey, jump over to the video 7. I want to hear Marjorie Taylor Greene. What the heck is going on with her? Watch this.
I stood with President Trump when virtually no one else did. Campaigned all over the country, spent millions of my own dollars helping him get elected. And I think that's incredibly important. And I do support him and his administration. And I support them in delivering the campaign promises we made to the American people. His remarks, of course, have been hurtful. However, I have something in my heart that I think is incredibly important for our country, and that is to end the toxic fighting in politics. And this has been going on for years, and it has divided our country, split up friends and families, neighbors, and it's not solving our problems. The most hurtful thing he said, which is absolutely untrue, is he called me a traitor. And that is so extremely wrong. And those are the types of words used that can radicalize people against me and put my life in danger.
Yeah, it's kind of like Candace Owens saying that, Turning Point was working together with the Jews in order to kill Charlie. Puts people's lives in danger when you say stuff like that. But the president, on his part, I got 58 seconds. Let's see how much I can say here. "I'm withdrawing my support," he says, in endorsement of Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene of the great state of Georgia over the past few weeks, despite my creating record achievements in our country, including a total and complete victory on the shutdown, closed borders, low taxes, no men and women's sports, transgenders for everyone, ending that DEI, stopping Biden's record-setting inflation, biggest regulation cuts in history, stopping 8 wars, rebuilding our military, being respected by every country in the world as opposed to being the laughingstock we were 12 months ago, having trillions of dollars, it's record-setting, people, invested in the United States of America, having created the hottest country anywhere in the world, from being a dead country just 12 months ago, and so much more. All I see is wacky Marjorie do is complain, complain, complain. It seemed to all begin when I sent her polls stating she shouldn't run for senator or governor because she's only got 12% statewide approval and that chance of winning. Unless, of course, she had my endorsement, which she wasn't about to get. I got to stop now because of the frustrating time constraint I've got. With Real America's Voice, I got to stop right here, right in the middle of a thought. All right, we'll be back in a second. Watch. I wanted to take a minute to talk about one of my great heroes of the faith, which is Mike Lindell. What's really cool about Mike is it's not just the pillow. It's the fact that the guy makes really cool products. For instance, I start my day off with a My Coffee. I had a cup of coffee the other day here in the office, and I said, no, I want that. It wasn't like Starbucks. It tastes better. And it was Mike's Coffee. I said, what is it? They go, Mike Lindell's Coffee. I said, my gosh, get a bunch of my coffees. Now, the best way to start the day is you put on these slippers, right? And have your My Coffee. If you've not worked with these slippers yet, I'm not kidding you. There's a special kind of design that Mike has put into these with 4 layers of cushion with a solid sole and a fur interior. I call it my sip and slip strategy. I start my day off by slipping on my slippers and having a sip of Mike's coffee. But you know what else I'm curious about now? Because I've got to check out the 2.0 pillow. The 2.0 pillow actually is designed so that it distributes the heat of your own head, your face. You know, you're lying there, and it makes it so the pillow's always cool. Now, I like that because I wake up in the middle of the night and have to flip over my pillow because it gets hot. Mike's solved that problem. I want you to go to mypillow.com, promo code Lance, because you can get a discount that I've set up for the pillows, for the coffee, and for the slippers. And do it today. You'll be happy. All right, we're back again, people. You know, Steve Allen, when I was a kid, he used to have this hat he'd put on. Be the angry journalist, right? And he had the word press on. He'd flatten that hat down his head, and he would read, but he would read like, you know, stupid stuff like Dear Ann, Dear Landlanders, you know, advice on Thanksgiving etiquette. But he read it like an angry journalist. Well, when Trump writes the hot tweets, you can put your angry hat on. You can actually imagine what he's saying. All Marjorie's doing, he said, is complain, complain, complain. And it all began when I sent her polls stating that she shouldn't run for senator or governor. She's at 12%, didn't have a chance unless, of course, she had my endorsement. She has told many people she's upset that I don't return her calls anymore. But with 219 congressmen and women, 53 senators, 24 cabinet members, and 200 countries, and an otherwise normal life to lead, I can't take a ranting lunatic's call every day. I understand what wonderful conservative people are thinking about primary. I understand wonderful conservative people are thinking about primarying Marjorie in her district of Georgia, that they too are fed up with her antics, and if the right person runs, they'll have my complete and unyielding support. She has gone far left, people. Even she did The View. She even went on The View with their low IQ Republican-hating anchors. Thank you again for your attention to this matter. Make America great again! Exclamation point. Well, I'll tell you what, when the boss is hot under the collar, this is what you get. You get these scorching ones. What time of day did he do this one? I don't know. It says 7:30 at night. Okay. It's the 2 a.m. ones I worry about. All over the world, they read these things at 2 a.m. and knock on the door. You know, President Xi, he just wrote something. What did he say? Well, what he's saying here is, if you read this psychologically, he's saying all the stuff I'm doing, all the good I'm doing, and all you can do is rub me raw with Epstein. What is he listening? You're doing this because it plays to your base. And the president's been doing this, and he needs to focus on this, and he needs to focus on that. Marjorie, I'm going to tell you what happened. They're both a lot alike. But she doesn't have the big stick. I work with Marjorie. I don't have a problem with her. I've worked with her. I've had her on my podcast. But she's a pushy girl. And that high dominant entrepreneurial tell it like it is personality gets results. But let me tell you something. I always tell people in my programs, pay attention, train stopping, instructions. Whatever strength you have, if you overextend it, it becomes a weakness. And being combative and being outspoken, you got to be careful when you're punching that you only punch in the same weight class. If you ever punch a gorilla or a lion, you'll get mauled. And when you punch the president, you're not punching parallel, you're punching up. Never punch up. Always honor as much as possible. It's good biblical advice. Honor the king. Oh, I know someone's going to say, Lance, he's not a king. I'm giving you biblical advice, people. Someone who's over you in a structure, respect them. And be careful how you critique them so that you don't diminish their prestige, especially when they go out of, and when you need them to return the favor. And Marjorie wanted to run for a bigger office. She wrote her book. My problem with Marjorie is this. Why did you quit? Why did you quit? Why didn't you stay in office? I think she wants to run for president. I think she knows she's not going to win, but she doesn't care. She's going to sell a bunch of books. She's going to you get a lot of free media and publicity. Once you hit, like, this is the thing I never wanted to do, and it's the reason why I stay under the radar a little bit. I don't want that much visibility. It's weird. I have self-sabotaging things I do every now and then, which is like, I don't know that I want to bring myself into the fishbowl of public inspection to the degree that I have to have security traveling with me everywhere I go. Well, if the Lord wants it, we'll do it. But I don't like it. But when you go up in the rainforest and your head is above everybody else to a high degree, here's the problem. When you're up there, here's the benefit of it. You got visibility, and visibility sells. It sells in podcasts, it sells in books, it sells in whatever enterprise you're in. And I think she's got a lot of money coming her way. I think she's already made like $28 million, $25 million. I don't decry her that. I'm saying not everybody that goes into Congress actually knows how to work it. She knows. And she's got her tribe. And her tribe, like the Candace Owen tribe, will be the Marjorie Taylor Greene tribe. And if they put her on The View or someplace else, you're going to have record ratings. So I think she's self-serving and not being congruent and honest about it, because she didn't have to step down. She probably could have still taken that. I don't think she could have been Listen, people that Trump endorsed didn't get elected. I mean, the mystique of his endorsement didn't take one person over the finish line that I know of in the last round of ugly elections. I think Marjorie could have held on to her seat. I think if she was really properly motivated, she should have served to the end of her term, which is what people voted her into office to do, not do 1 year and quit while you set up your next career. That's where the self-serving bothers me. I'm sorry. Correct me if I'm mistaken, but I'm not. Let's go to the ever-immortal Rush Limbaugh. According to the Bible, it says, him being dead, he yet speaketh. I want you to hear Thanksgiving from the one man who knew the story better than anything. And get this one for your kids, because this will be the ivermectin that'll protect them from the spread of progressive propaganda in the classroom when they talk about Indigenous Peoples Day and miss the real message of Thanksgiving. And we'll see you again tomorrow.
The true story of Thanksgiving. The story of the Pilgrims begins in the early part of the 17th century. The Church of England under King James I was persecuting anyone and everyone who did not recognize its absolute civil and spiritual authority. Those who challenged ecclesiastical authority and those who believed strongly in freedom of worship were hunted down, imprisoned, and sometimes executed for their beliefs. A group of separatists first fled to Holland and established a community. After 11 years, about 40 of them agreed to make a perilous journey to the New World, where they would certainly face hardships but could live and worship God according to the dictates of their own consciences. On August 1st, 1620, the Mayflower set sail. It carried a total of 102 passengers, including 40 pilgrims led by William Bradford. On the journey, Bradford set up an agreement, a contract, that established just and equal laws for all members of the new community, irrespective of their religious beliefs. Where did the revolutionary ideas expressed in the Mayflower Compact come from? They came from the Bible. The Pilgrims were a people completely steeped in the lessons of the Old and New Testaments. They looked to the ancient Israelites for their example. And because of the biblical precedents set forth in Scripture, they never doubted that their experiment would work. But it was no pleasure cruise. The journey to the New World was a long and arduous one, and when the Pilgrims landed in New England in November, they found, according to Bradford's detailed journal, a cold, barren, desolate wilderness. There were no friends to greet them, he wrote. There were no houses to shelter them. There were no inns where they could refresh themselves, and the sacrifice that they had made for freedom was just beginning. During the first winter, half the Pilgrims, including Bradford's own wife, died of either starvation, sickness, or exposure. When spring finally came, Indians taught the settlers how to plant corn, fish for cod, and skin beavers for coats. Life improved for the Pilgrims, but they did not yet prosper. And this is important to understand because this is where modern American history lessons often end. Thanksgiving is actually explained in some textbooks as a holiday for which the Pilgrims gave thanks to the Indians for saving their lives, rather than as a devout expression of gratitude grounded in the tradition of both the Old and New Testaments. Here's the part that's been omitted. The original contract the Pilgrims had entered into with their merchant sponsors in London called for everything they produced to go into a common store, and each member of the community was entitled to one common share. All of the land that they cleared and the houses they built belonged to the community as well, and they were going to distribute it equally. All the land they cleared, the houses they built, belonged to the community. Nobody owned anything. They just had a share in it. It was a commune. It was the forerunner to the communes we saw in the 60s and 70s out in California. And it was complete with organic vegetables even, just like the communes of today are. No, there's no question it was organic vegetables. Bradford, who had become the new governor of the colony, recognized that this form of collectivism was as costly and destructive to the Pilgrims as that first harsh winter, which had taken so many lives. He decided to take bold action. Bradford assigned a plot of land to each family to work and manage, thus turning loose the power of the marketplace. Long before Karl Marx was even born, the Pilgrims had discovered and experimented with what could only be described as socialism. And what happened? It didn't work. They nearly starved. It never has worked. What Bradford and his community found was that the most creative and industrious people had no incentive to work any harder than anybody else, unless they could utilize the power of personal motivation. But while most of the rest of the world has been experimenting with socialism for well over 100 years, trying to refine it, perfect it, and reinvent it, the Pilgrims decided early on to scrap it permanently. What Bradford wrote about this social experiment should be in every school child's history lesson. If it were, we might prevent such needless suffering in the future, such as that we're enduring now. The experience that we had in this common course and condition, this is Bradford, the experience we had in this common course and condition tried Sunday years, that by taking away property and bringing community into a commonwealth would make them happy and flourishing, as if they were wiser than God, Bradford wrote. For this community, so far as it was found to breed much confusion and discontent, and retard much employment that would have been to their benefit and comfort. For young men that were most able and fit for labor and service did repine that they should spend their time and strength to work for other men's wives and children without being paid for it. That was thought injustice. Why should you work for other people when you can't work for yourself? What's the point? That's what he was saying. The Pilgrims found that people could not be expected to do their best work without incentive. So what did Bradford's community try next? They unharnessed the power of good old free enterprise by invoking the undergirding capitalistic principle of private property. Every family was assigned its own plot of land to work and permitted to market its own crops and products. What was the result? Bradford wrote, "This had very good success, for it made all hands industrious, so as much more corn was planted than otherwise would have been." Is it possible that supply-side economics could have existed before the 1980s? Yes. Read the story of Joseph and Pharaoh in Genesis 41. Following Joseph's suggestion, Pharaoh reduced the tax on Egyptians to 20%. During the 7 years of plenty, and the earth brought forth in heaps. Well, in no time, the Pilgrims found that they had more food than they could eat themselves. Now, this is where it gets really good. If you're laboring under the misconception that I was, as I was taught in school, they set up trading posts. They exchanged goods with the Indians. The profits allowed them to pay off their debts to the merchants in London. And the success and the prosperity of the Plymouth settlement attracted more Europeans and began what came to be known as the Great Puritan Migration. But this story stops when the Indians taught the newly arrived suffering and socialism pilgrims how to plant corn and fish for cod. That's where the original Thanksgiving story stops. Story basically doesn't even begin there. The real story of Thanksgiving is William Bradford giving thanks to God for the guidance and the inspiration to set up a thriving colony that socialism caused near starvation. The bounty was shared with the Indians. They did sit down. They did have free-range turkey and organic vegetables. But it wasn't the Indians who saved the day. It was capitalism and Scripture which saved the day, as acknowledged by George Washington in his first Thanksgiving proclamation in 1789.
Did you enjoy this latest episode? Please remember to share it with your friends, because the more knowledge you have,